All right, so today we're jumping into a pretty amazing story of high-stakes biology. It's got everything: a tiny blood-sucking parasite, a huge global agricultural crisis, and this incredible scientific hunt to find a hero that's been hiding in plain sight. A goat, whose very DNA holds the key to survival.
And really, that's the big question here, right? Could a goat's own DNA be the ultimate weapon against a deadly parasite? Because for hundreds of millions of goats, and the people who depend on them all over the world, this isn't just some academic question. It's a matter of life and death.
So our story doesn't actually start in some high-tech lab. It starts out in the field, out in the pasture, with a threat that's so small you can barely see it, but its impact is absolutely devastating. So meet the villain of our story, Haemonchus contortus. This is not just any parasite. It's a really nasty stomach worm that latches onto the stomach lining of sheep and goats, causing anemia, weight loss, and way too often, death. And when you think about the fact that there are over 921 million goats in the world, many on small family farms, this tiny little worm becomes a massive threat to our global food security. For years, the main weapon we had against this thing was chemical dewormers. But here's the problem. The parasites are getting resistant to the drugs. So scientists realize the best, most lasting solution might not come from a bottle. It might already be there, inside the animals themselves, written right into their genetic code. So, how do you find the goats that have the best genes? Well, the old way was basically just to eyeball it. You'd look around and say, which animal looks the healthiest? But that's super slow, and honestly, it can be really misleading. The new way is called genomic selection. Instead of just looking at the outside, scientists can now literally read an animal's DNA to find the ones that are genetically wired to fight back. This is an absolute game changer.
To do that, you need to know exactly what you're looking for. And the key is something called an SNT. It's just a tiny one-letter variation in the DNA sequence. The best way to think about it is like a single-letter typo in the book of life. Now, most of these typos don't do anything at all. But some of them can be the difference between a goat that gets really sick and one that just thrives. Finding the right SNPs is the key to this whole thing.
And this was the huge roadblock. See, while cattle breeders had all these advanced tools to find SNPs, these high-tech chips that could scan hundreds of thousands of genetic markers, goat researchers had pretty much nothing. They knew the answers were hidden in the DNA, but they had no map, no flashlight. They were completely flying blind.
So, what do you do when the tool you desperately need just doesn't exist? Well, you build it. And that's exactly what happened. An incredible international team of scientists, the International Goat Genome Consortium, all came together to do just that.
And this is what they created, the GOAT SNP5 chip. Seriously, think of it like a super-powered barcode scanner, but for DNA. It was designed from the ground up to read over 50,000 of those specific genetic typos we talked about all across the entire goat genome in one single test. This was the tool that was finally going to let them see what was going on.
Now, the process to build this thing was immense. As you can see here, it all started with researchers from all over the world uniting their efforts. Then they sequenced the full genomes of 6 totally different goat breeds to make sure they captured as much genetic diversity as possible. That uncovered over 10 million potential SNPs. From that massive list, they had to painstakingly select only the most useful, most informative ones to put on the final chip.
And the final results? A chip that could reliably scan, get this, 52,295 specific locations in the goat genome, all at once. It was like suddenly researchers could see this huge, incredibly detailed landscape of genetic variation. The blindfold was finally off.
Okay, so with this powerful new tool in hand, scientists could finally go on the hunt for those parasite resistance genes. And this hunt, it turned into a classic genetic detective story, all about comparing the vulnerable with the strong. The logic was actually pretty simple, but really powerful. You find goat breeds that are known to be naturally tough against this Haemonchus parasite, and you compare their DNA to breeds that are known to be really susceptible. The differences in their genomes, well, they should point you right to the genes responsible for that resistance. And here are our main characters in this story. On one side, you've got the Boer goat. It's a popular meat breed, but it's notoriously susceptible to this parasite. On the other side, you've got the Kiko and the Spanish goats, 2 breeds that are well known for their natural toughness and resilience. The stage was set for a genetic showdown.
And wow, the results were dramatic. When they were all exposed to the parasite, the susceptible Boyer goats had an average fecal egg count of over 1,500. But the Kiko and Spanish goats, their counts were over 40% lower. This was crystal clear, measurable proof that a powerful genetic defense was at work. So we know that the Kiko and Spanish goats are more resistant. But the next obvious question was, why? Now, with the goat SNP50 chip, researchers could finally just ask the DNA directly and find the genetic root of this superpower. So using the chip, they scanned the genomes of all 3 breeds, and they were looking for something called signatures of selection. You can literally think of these as genetic footprints. See, over many, many generations, if a specific gene gives an animal a major survival advantage, like parasite resistance, that version of the gene becomes way more common. It leaves a clear footprint in the DNA that scientists can spot. And they found them. The scan lit up these specific genes in the resistant goats. Now, I know names like TLR4 and IL-12A might sound super complex, but their jobs are absolutely crucial. They basically act like the generals of the immune system, controlling everything from how the body first spots an invader to how it manages the entire fight. This was the genetic blueprint for resistance they had been searching for. But here's where it got really, really fascinating. When they compared their results to similar studies that had been done in sheep, they found an incredible overlap. 3 of the exact same immunity genes showed these footprints of selection in both species. So this wasn't just a goat thing. It was evidence of a shared, ancient defense mechanism that evolution has been favoring in both sheep and goats for thousands of years. So what does all this incredible science actually mean? Well, it means we can finally move from just reacting to this parasite to proactively building a more resilient global goat herd. This knowledge is power. Breeders no longer have to guess which animals have the best defenses. Using tools like this SNP chip, they can do a simple DNA test and know, with a high degree of precision, which goats are carrying the genetic markers for resistance. Then, they can choose those animals for breeding, systematically making the whole population healthier over time. And that's the ultimate goal here. Just as the researchers themselves concluded, finding these shared defense mechanisms gives us clear targets to aim for. It's all about building a future with healthier animals, more sustainable farms, and a more secure food supply, all by unlocking the power that was hidden in the genome all along. It's just such a powerful reminder that the answers to some of our biggest challenges can be written in the smallest of codes. It leaves us with a really exciting question. Now that we've mapped out resistance, what's the next super trait that's just waiting to be discovered?